So welcome everybody. I think most of you know me now, or you certainly know me by all the different messages in the WhatsApp group. But my role in 3Search is one of the directors here. So I look after our comms team, all of our temps activity, and all the industry teams that recruit for broad marketing and broad digital roles. And obviously, you know, the reason that I'd set up this group and that we've done all these lovely events so far is that I'm just super passionate about just trying to get, you know, women together for just, I guess, you know, this shared group that feels like it seems to be kind of really meaningful to people around just having more women who are at the same kind of level as them, you know, to talk to, who share the same kind of, you know, frustrations or challenges, you know, around, you know, what to do to keep moving their career forwards. And I think what I did notice in the events that we've done so far is there was definitely a real theme between people being very interested in coaching, very interested in mentoring, and definitely talking around these shared experiences around frustrations of, you know, how do you articulate yourself and deal with, you know, moving up the career ladder when, you know, a lot of the people around you and that you're reporting into are male. And so for those of you who were at the very first event that we did back in Q4, Celia was a speaker at that first event then. So when I heard that she was launching a coaching business, I was definitely keen to hear more about it, just to see if it felt beneficial compared to a lot of the themes that were coming up. And obviously it was. So the format of this webinar then, just let a couple more people in while I'm talking. So the theme and the format of the webinar is going to be, we're going to do it in a bit more of like a Q&A style. So we're going to talk through Celia's approach to coaching, why it's beneficial to women in particular. We'll go through how you can apply it to some real life work scenarios. And then she'll tell you a little bit more about, you know, how you can work with her if you're interested in taking this approach further. We'll have a bit of Q&A time at the end. Obviously, a couple of you have submitted questions already, so we'll go through those. But please just, you know, be reassured this is a safe space to ask questions. You know, just like the group is, full stop. So, you know, the questions that you ask, I'm sure everyone else is sitting there thinking, oh, I wish someone else would ask that otherwise. So if you've got a question, please do ask it. You can also go into the Q&A little section at the top. So if there's something you think about, you know, as the webinar is going on, pop it in there, or we can go through them at the end. We are recording it, so obviously I did check with the group as a bit of a balance of feeling on it about whether you were happy to do that. And when we get to the Q&A part, I will ask again if anyone has a question that they'd rather we stopped recording for. We will of course do that, but otherwise we'll carry on the recording. And then the only other admin thing was going to say, I will share all of your contact details with Celia afterwards so that she can send you a follow-up. But if you would rather that your contact details weren't shared, let me know in the next 24 hours. So without much further ado, I'm going to let Celia intro herself, but I think she's keen just to do a little exercise before she does that.
Thank you so much, Liz, and hello, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you all, and thank you for taking this time for you. I think particularly on a busy Monday morning when no doubt we're all facing hundreds of emails, we're trying to run around, possibly some trading meetings. It's really difficult to take this time out for yourself, particularly on a Monday. So thank you for doing that. So before we get started, I thought it might be nice to just help us all arrive. And so if you're open to it, I would like to do some box breathing. It's really easy. Don't worry, I'll talk you through it. All I need you to do is to basically firstly put down, hopefully you finished your lunch. If not, maybe you can just quickly interrupt your lunch. Shut down your email for a few moments and put one hand on your belly and one hand on your heart. Doesn't matter which hand goes where, wherever you feel most comfortable, and close your eyes. And what we're going to do is we're going to breathe into your belly, so into your abdomen. You should feel your hand rise when you do this for a count of 4, really feeling the belly rise. So if you take a deep breath in, and let's breathe in for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for a count of 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathe out for 4, 3, 2, 1, and hold for a count of 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's do that one more time. Breathe in for a count of 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for a count of 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathe out for 4, 3, 2, 1. And hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. And now gently open your eyes. And hopefully you feel a bit more centered and you feel as though you've arrived. That was a quick version. I would normally recommend you do this 5 times, but it's a really simple technique you can take with you throughout your day. If you're going into a meeting that's particularly stressful or heading into a stressful situation, but also a great way to start and end your day. So welcome again, everyone.
So I'm going to let you introduce yourself then, rather than kind of me give a bit of a preamble, because I think it'd be nice hearing it directly from you.
Sure. So I began my career in marketing at Unilever quite a few years ago now. And then I transitioned to a career in digital and specifically working in startups, but I also worked in corporates. I sort of tended to flick between the two. I was either the troublemaker going into a big corporate, or I would go into a startup and typically be the one who was a bit of the grown-up in the room. So I did tend to flick between the two. And then I moved into a specific focus on digital transformation, really helping organizations going through digital transformation think about all the people and the process and the culture and the data that needs to underpin a successful digital transformation. So I definitely had a bit of a squiggly career, as they call it, before my final position as an MD of an online business called Love Home Swap, which, if you've ever seen The Holiday, that was the inspiration for Love Home Swap, and I was the MD there. I stepped down from my full-time career at the end of 2022 to focus on a portfolio career. And so today I am a non-executive director on 5 boards. I span water. We don't do sewage, so before you get upset with me, we only do water. So I sit on a water company board called Southeast Water. I also sit on motorway services, so Moto. I sit on a food manufacturing company board called Samworth Brothers. We manufacture both own label food, but also brands like Ginsters and Saurine and Higgedy. I sit on the board of TGI Fridays, and I also sit on a scientific board called Camden BRI. Alongside my portfolio career, I run my own digital advisory practice, and now my holistic coaching and mentoring practice, specifically supporting senior women. And my focus on women is because my purpose is to support women in succeeding in their professional ambitions, whatever that might be. And that was really my calling. Perhaps if I talk a little bit about holistic coaching and mentoring and what that actually means, I kind of describe it as the missing piece. And I'm sure that all of you in your illustrious careers will have been exposed to various tools in the workplace. So things like, things that help you identify your personality or your profile and how we like to work. Tools like MBTI, like strengths, like NLP, and in some cases, even CBT. And I'm a huge fan of those. And in fact, I use NLP, CBT, and strengths myself. And I find them really useful and powerful. But to my mind, they really give you the what. What do I like to do? And the how. How do I like to do it? But they don't give you the why. And that why operates at a much, much deeper level. And it's the missing key to really understanding who you are to help you unlock that success in a way that feels natural and aligned, and of course, aligned to you as an individual. And that's really what I do with my approach. And so my point of difference is that the tools and the techniques and the approach I use is to support the women that I mentor and coach. But of course, I use those myself because I'm still operating in the professional world as a non-exec director. And so it's about really helping women navigate that professional landscape.
I mean, you sort of mentioned about the fact that, a lot of the classic coaching is about the what and the how, the what and the how. And like, you're definitely a lot more about putting this why in, and maybe the why sort of, is often missing for people. But why do you think that the why so important?
Oh my gosh, I think it's just at the heart of everything. If you think of a pressure cooker, and once you've finished cooking whatever you were cooking in there, when you release that pressure gauge and you can hear that whoosh sound, for me it's kind of like that. It's just this release that comes with knowing who you are, and it gives you permission to be yourself, by understanding your values, by understanding how to really listen to the deep wisdom that we all hold within. As women in particular, we hold divine feminine wisdom, but so often we don't know how to listen to that. And we have that in abundance. So we often suppress that, particularly at work, and we think that we have no value to add through that divine feminine, but we have so much to add through that. So you know that feeling in the pit of your stomach when you decide to do something, and it just sits uncomfortably with you. And I'll bet that if you reflect on the decisions you made in the past and where things haven't worked out, you probably had that feeling in the pit of your stomach, and you probably knew, but you chose not to listen to it. And so for me, the why is about aligning your head and your heart so that you learn to tap into those the deep wisdom that comes from within, and aligning that with the power of your mind, so that when you're making decisions or facing challenging situations, you know how to make the right decisions for yourself, but also you apply it in how you lead your teams with clarity and with purpose.
So, it feeds into a little bit to one of the Q&As that was submitted in advance that we'll talk about later. But when you and I spoke about this, you're talking about like giving yourself permission to be yourself rather than feeling like you need to be somebody else, or this is what the organization or the people around me make me feel like I need to be. Do you think that kind of gives a little bit more clarity to the why bit?
100%. Everyone has a unique blueprint. Everybody came here with a unique blueprint, and we've grown up in a society where we are encouraged to fit in, and we are encouraged to conform, even when it doesn't feel natural to us. And so sometimes we struggle to have the discernment to know that something is sitting uncomfortably with us, and really importantly, to give ourselves permission to listen to that and to hear and understand why that is, to help you understand what you need to do about it. Rather than brushing it aside and going, oh, that's okay, that doesn't matter. Actually learning to be okay with sitting with the discomfort until you understand the messages that that's trying to give you, because that discomfort will come from somewhere, and it will come from a deep, deep knowing.
And we talked quite a lot around why you decided to go with this approach, why you got interested in doing coaching and the different elements to it. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit more again? Because I think people will identify a bit with your rationale about why you felt that having this kind of approach was important for you.
Yeah. So as I mentioned at the top, like many people, I had been exposed to things like MBTI and strengths in particular. I'm a huge strengths fan. I just think it's so important and such an important tool in your kit of understanding yourself. But a number of years ago, I was in a very senior position. I was the most senior female in the organization, and I went through a horrendous experience with my boss, who was the CEO. And I ended up having to raise a case against him for bullying and inappropriate behavior. It was a very protracted investigation, during which I was forced to continue reporting to him, despite my request not to. So I had to face the situation where he knew that I'd raised a grievance. I was still reporting to him. I still had to go to things like one-to-ones. And it was just a very stressful situation, which took in the end about 6 months to resolve. He did end up leaving the organization. And so with all of this anxiety and all of this anger and all of this, all of the feelings that I was going through, I discovered meditation. And that really became a true coping mechanism for me, because it helped me start to learn how to center, and it started to help me just learn how to get clarity. And that for me was the start of the journey. And then on particularly bad days, I also then got into tapping or EFT, depending on, you may have come across it called either one of those things, which is a technique that's been proven to actually, it calms down your nervous system. And so on particularly bad days, I would use tapping. I would even go into things like the loo and just do some tapping just to kind of calm myself down. And so that was really the start of it. And then a few years later, so 8 years ago now, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. And the autoimmune condition I have was probably triggered quite a few years before I was actually diagnosed. But really I really had to take an entirely new approach to my lifestyle, because medication alone isn't enough to manage this condition. And I was still in an executive role at the time, but I had to kind of find that balance between the two. And that really started me on this journey towards exploring breathing techniques and other holistic modalities, to really help me have this like toolkit of weapons I could use, if you like. Then of course COVID comes along, and that drove a further trigger, because that really got me to start asking myself, well, why am I here? What is all of this for? And it, I think, just reinforced that we're here for a very, very short span of time. And so it took me further down this path of learning more. And so it was really when I stepped down from my executive career, which the birth of the idea for which came out of COVID, that I really had time to think about the power of bringing together these traditional modalities like your NLPs and your CBTs and strengths, but with the other modalities to create this holistic approach. So it comes from a very, very personal place.
And if you're thinking about, this idea of bringing everything together, like what extra career edge do you think that putting everything together now has helped you? Because obviously, you did all of like the more traditional things like, having a coach and doing NLP, etc., that were done for you before. But now that you've added this part in as well, what sort of edge do you think it helps give to females in their careers?
So the biggest thing I can say is, think about this in terms of energy, because we're all energy. So, and you might, when you think, well, what do I mean by energy? Think of it as high vibration or positive vibes. Normally when you meet someone, immediately this person has a positive vibe or they don't. And even, when you look at people like Tesla, who famously said, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency and vibration. So everything and everyone is energy. Doors, cars, and of course us as humans, and we all emit frequencies. And so emotions are also energy and can also affect our vibrations. And so if you have negative emotions, those are lower vibrations with feelings of heaviness, feeling sad. And of course, on the opposite end, a positive emotion is a high vibration. You feel light, you feel happy, you feel positive. So when you think about how you want to approach your career, of course, we all want to get to a place where we're operating from a place of high vibration. And that high vibration comes from that deep understanding of who you are. It comes from finding your purpose within and doing what you do in a way that comes very naturally to you. That's how you lift your vibrations, and that's how you lift your performance. So what does that actually mean in practice? Because it all sounds great. We talk about energy, great.
Yep.
It means know who you are and step into your power. We all have a power. It's about stepping into that power. It's about feeling in flow. When you feel in flow, when things are going right for you, you feel positive, you feel light, you feel energetic. It's getting to that state. It's about giving you that perspective of seeing things in a new light, seeing situations in a new light, and able to filter between the things that matter and the things that don't. One of the lessons that I had to learn myself was, when you face into a challenge, think to yourself, will this matter in 5 years? If it won't, it probably doesn't matter at all. If something will matter in 5 years, it's important enough to focus on. So it's getting that natural discernment between the two. And then I think the final thing it really has helped me do is to give you an ability to read people and situations with a newfound clarity and perspective, so that you can think about how you regulate your response to it, whether that's an emotional response or otherwise, by almost becoming an observer of the situation rather than a participant in this situation.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, we've talked like quite conceptually about all of this, but let's kind of put some practical examples in there now. So let's kind of talk about, again, I think the example we'll touch on a little bit later again in the Q&A, but it's like how to get your voice heard in a group of men. Like, how do you think you could put this into play to help you with that?
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing I would say is that you can only ever control your own behavior. You can't control for theirs. And I think that's a really difficult thing for us to get our head around, because we can see that the way they might be behaving, or the way that they might be speaking, or the things that they might be saying, it could be unfair, it could be not the way that we would approach the situation. But the only behavior you can ever control is your own. And I think the other thing is to think about why is it that they behave in the way that they do? Is it that you're operating in a culture that accepts that sort of behavior? Or is it about one or two individuals that behave in that way? And the reason I think that discernment is really important is because if it's a cultural aspect of the organization, then I think there's some work for you to think about your alignment with that organization. And is that really an organization you want to be part of? If something is sitting so deeply uncomfortable with you and you aren't getting heard and they aren't giving you a voice, then is that the right culture for you? Assuming it's a handful of individuals, then I think there's an important piece around, okay, well, let me understand my values. And really importantly, let me understand my strengths, because you will have strengths that you can tap into that you may not have even realized that you have a strength. So you might have a strength around resilience. You might have a strength around leading that you haven't thought to really lean on in particular situations that you might be facing into. I think the other thing to think about is those individuals who are very loud. Why are they so loud? What's their motivation? What's driving them to be so loud? And why are they not letting anyone into the conversation? Is it coming from a place of fear? Is it coming from a place of feeling as though they're powerful? Those are really important differentiators, because, for example, if you have someone who's very loud and they come at it from a place of fear, then actually the way in which you can speak to them is about reassuring them. So I hear you, Paul, but here's my perspective. Or I think that's a really important point. Give them the reassurance, remove the fear, and then find your voice. If somebody's coming in it from a position of power, going, I know better than you, then again, come back to the culture of the organization. What's the culture of the organization? Is it one where the only people who get ahead are the people who shout the loudest? Or is it one where it's done through performance? What kind of culture is that? And so if it's a culture where it's about shouting the loudest and that doesn't sit naturally for you, is that the right place for you to be? If it's one where performance speaks louder than words, then how are you going to amplify your performance and your achievements to get yourself heard? Because that's your permission to play. And then the last thing I would say on that is think about allies. Who are your allies in the organization, particularly men? Because I think it's important for us to think about men as allies. They aren't always the opposite end of the scale. How can you leverage any allies you have in the organization to either give you feedback about your performance in particular situations, or to help you get your voice heard, particularly in challenging meetings and forums that you might be in?
Yeah, it's such a good point, isn't it, of just taking the step back and reading the room and trying to understand where somebody else is coming from, so that you know what you need to do to try and adapt your approach to that bit more, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, I will say we as women are better at that because we have intuition.
Yeah, no, you are correct. All right, and so the other key example that we sort of brainstormed that we thought people might be interested to have a practical example is that, I want to take the next step in my career, but how can I make sure I'm doing all I can to be the best leader possible? What would you say to people about that?
Yeah. So I think that leadership is a bit of a nebulous thing. It's a bit like when people talk about communication. What does that even mean? I think that the best leaders are those who work in an authentic and aligned way with a clear mission and purpose, but also those who help the people around them to feel safe and valued and productive. Now, it's really hard for you to create an environment where people feel safe, valued, and productive if you don't know who you are. So who am I? Why do I want the next step? Why is that important to me? Is it driven by ego? I want the status and I want the job title, or is it driven because I want to improve the organization, or I really want to create the best environment for people to work in? I think it's important for you to understand your motivations, why you want that role, because that then helps you shape the kind of leader that you want to be. So that's why I think it's such an important question to ask. Being really clear as to whether this is the right step for me and why. Why is that important? Because a lot of us are sort of through peer pressure society told, get on the next step of the career ladder. And for some people, absolutely, that's the right step, but it might not be right for everyone. So being really clear about why that's the right step for you, being really clear on your values and your strengths that you are going to bring to that position. And also thinking about what kind of leader do I want to be? The best lessons I ever learned were from the worst bosses I had, not really from the best bosses I ever had, because I always vowed I would never be that kind of boss. So what are the lessons that you've learned, the things that you've picked up that you have either vowed you're never going to do, but equally the things you may have learned from amazing bosses that you've had in your past. And also then being clear of your blind spots. We all have them. What are your blind spots? What are the things that can trip you up? And I think this is particularly important the more senior you become in an organization. Those blind spots will rear themselves. And I'm not suggesting we can get rid of them, but we can become aware of them. And when we become aware of them and we understand our triggers for those blind spots, we can start to consciously manage them, because we can't get rid of them. Like I said, I mean, nobody is perfect. Having the self-awareness of where things could go wrong for you. Do you have an ability to delegate, or do you want to do it all yourself, as a practical example? Do I trust others? Do I want to lift as I climb? Being really clear on where things could trip you up. And I think the important thing about leadership, of course, is it becomes much more about how you do it rather than the things you know as you get more and more senior. And so that awareness and self-reflection is a really important aspect of succeeding as you get to that leadership level.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, I can definitely relate of this thought of, I mean, I think for me it's probably more come with age and thinking about things for myself than having had somebody help me think about it. But I agree, like if I think back on the past of I've been in organizations where I have behaved in a certain way because that's what was expected of me,
Yeah.
and didn't really sit well with me and wasn't authentic. And I think I suffered as a leader because of it, because I wasn't true to who I was and being clear about what my why is. So you're completely right.
Can I ask you a question on that, if you don't mind, Liz?
Yeah.
When you were in that situation, did you end up in a situation where your immune system was compromised, or you got coughs and colds more often, or you felt ill, or you felt drained? Did you face any of that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That's exactly why, because it's that energy. That energy also creates vitality and health in ourselves. And so you were basically sapping that energy, that vibration was low, and it leaves you more susceptible to bugs and, illness.
No, you're totally right. Okay, so do you want to just tell everyone a little bit more about, the SheCapital brand, and give an overview of, I guess of what you offer, in case people are interested to take this a bit further as well and have a bit more one-to-one time with you?
Sure, thank you. So the first thing is I offer a free introductory call for about 45 minutes. And this is really an opportunity for us to get to know each other a little bit better and see whether we're right for each other. I appreciate there are many, many, many other choices out there and loads of coaches and mentors. So I might not be the right one for you, and that's absolutely fine. I think, it just gives us an opportunity to meet each other. And then I have a one-to-one coaching and mentoring program that people can work with me on. It is one-to-one, it's dedicated, it's completely bespoke. I don't have a cookie cutter approach to anyone. I have a number of different modalities that I use, which will be completely appropriate to who you are. And that can either be for a 6-month period or for a 12-month period, depending on what you feel your needs are. Usually once a month we would meet, and it's for up to 1.5 hours. And that can be in person in London or online. I'm flexible on either of those. And then next year, I'm super excited about this. I'm going to be launching my Capitalized community, and that's going to be 20 senior women max. So it's going to be a nice, small, intimate group. And that really gives those who've worked with me the opportunity to build a network of like-minded women, which is why you have to have worked with me to be eligible to join it, because then I know everyone is in the same place. And it's a 12-month membership, and that includes an intimate quarterly dinners in London. It includes something called a life activation, which basically resets your DNA and plugs you back into your DNA and kind of helps you feel more you. It includes things like a full energy balancing session, aura healing, and also a detailed birth chart reading, which if you've never had done before is very enlightening and gives you even more permission to be yourself. And then next year, I'm also launching a retreat. And that will be open to anyone who feels open to coming, the calling to come and learn more about themselves and who they came here to be and why. So that will be launching next year as well. So I'm accepting new clients, pre-registrations for those interested, and they can just find out all the details on my website at she-capital.com.
How exciting. And then that's the information that you can send to everyone as well afterwards.
Yes.
So just as a reminder, Celia will drop you a note unless you tell me otherwise in the next 24 hours. So that all sounds super cool. So before we go into the Q&A bit then, what are your 5 top tips that you would leave people with then today?
Okay, so these are really, really simple things that you can do today. The minute you hang up this call, even if you choose never to work with anyone ever and you don't feel you need it, which is absolutely fine, there are 5 things I would really recommend you do. And I sort of bucket them into 2 things. One is what I call rituals. So they are kind of the things I would recommend you try and do, ideally morning and night, but of course you can also do them throughout the day. And then there's visualization. So let's talk about rituals. 4 things I would recommend under rituals. How you wake up in the morning sets your intention for the day, and it also sets your attitude to the day. So if you are like me, before I went on this journey, I used to wake up with the news, and the news does not tend to be positive. So I would wake up with that frame of mind where things would be, another war, crisis here and there. That was the mindset I was waking up with. I don't wake up with the news anymore. I wake up to music. And waking up with that intention for the day. So when I wake up, before I get out of bed, I say, I'm grateful for today. Thank you. Today is going to be a wonderful day. Or if I know I'm going to a tough situation, because I get not every day is going to be wonderful for everyone, then I would say something to myself like, I'm grateful for today. Thank you. I know today is going to be a challenging day, but I have all I need to succeed. That's literally 10 seconds before you get out of bed. You can just put your hand on your heart and whisper those to yourself. Important to say it out loud, because that's how it gets absorbed into the body, and that's how it raises your vibration, your frequency. So like I say, 10 seconds, you can say to yourself, get out of bed, and then you're on with the rest of your day. And at the end of the day, you can literally say, I'm grateful for today, thank you. Or when you've been in that challenging meeting, at the end of it, go to the loo and just go, I'm grateful for that, thank you. So just those little moments, but that waking up is super, super important. The second is breathing. We don't breathe properly. So we started with this breathing exercise into the belly. It's really important to try and get yourself used to and into the discipline of breathing into the belly. The minute you stop breathing into the belly and you're breathing into the chest, that's normally when you're getting anxious. That normally means you're starting to feel nervous or fear or anything that triggers that kind of short breathing. So breathing back into the belly, using the box breathing technique, really important. And if you can get into the habit of doing that in the morning and the night, even better. Again, you can do it on the tube. Nobody will know what you're doing, or on the train. Really easy to do. The third is gratitude. If you walk away with nothing else, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. That practice of gratitude really does completely change your frame of reference. It changes your mindset. It changes your alignment. It changes your frequency. Ideally, you want to practice gratitude out loud or through journaling. It's important, because if you just do it silently, thinking the thoughts, the frequencies don't get absorbed into your body. So really important to practice it out loud. I'll give you a sort of a short story. My husband wasn't really into any of this stuff. And during COVID, obviously things were pretty bad. And I even got him into gratitude. And so what we now do at night, before we get into bed and just before we go to sleep, each of us has to talk about gratitudes. What are we grateful for today? Really, really simple thing. It's changed his point of reference in life, and it really can do the same for you. The fourth is meditation. I'm not going to give you a prescription that says you have to meditate for this time or that length of time. Whatever you can fit into your day, 5 minutes if that's all you've got, morning and night, it will genuinely transform your life. Giving yourself that stillness where you can just sit with yourself will really, really transform your life. So on the rituals, like I say, how you wake up in the morning, think about that. Breathing, gratitude, and meditation. They are your anchor to raising your vibrations and energy. And they help you bring that clarity and focus and building resilience. And then the fifth tip is around visualization. So what do you really want in this life? What will it feel like? What will it look like when you achieve it? Who will be around me? Be really, really descriptive, really put a lot of color around it. Write it down, put it on Post-it notes, make it your screensaver, give yourself mantras, give yourself permission to achieve it. It is safe for me to take the next step in my career and become the CMO. It is safe for me to achieve this goal. Really using visualization, because again, that's how the mind and particularly the unconscious receive the messages and moves into action to deliver what you have manifested. So those would be my 5 tips.
I mean, you're right. Since we talked about these things, like I tragically, and hopefully I'm not the only person who's done this and is that tragic, but like as soon as I wake up, I check my work emails. I turn the alarm off and I check my work emails first thing I do. And I've just tried to stop it, just to at least have that bit of time to just get myself ready, set myself in the right mindset rather than immediately looking for what could be the drama. That's it, because usually in recruitment, if you get an email overnight, it's probably because it's bad news. And so it's never going to wake up to something good. So yeah, I think, you know, and it does just help. Right.
It makes a huge difference. And just to that point, if you've had something overnight, and as you say, in recruitment, it's never a good thing. Does it matter if you only get to that in half an hour's time?
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
It's happened. Totally right. So
yeah. Yep. Yeah. I agree. Okay, so we are going to go to the Q&A. So I know that we did have 2 questions that came in from the group. If anyone wants to ask their own question rather than type it in, do you want to just raise your hand up and then I'll unmute you? Might that be the easiest way to do it, do you think, Celia?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or I can ask the questions, I can say the questions that people have put into the group. Shall I say them first then? So one of the questions was, how do you continue to be authentic but not emotional in the face of unfairness created by politics and the boys' club? So I think you've touched on this a little bit.
Yeah, I did. Thank you. I think this was Chantal who asked the question. So thank you, Chantal, for the question. So some of it I've already mentioned around recognizing you can only ever control your behavior. You cannot control the behavior of anyone else around you. The other thing I would really encourage you to do is to know your strengths and what you can tap into to navigate their behavior. So, you know, do you, for example, have courage or enthusiasm or leading? These are all really, really powerful strengths. And they are the qualities that energize you and that you are or have the potential to be great at. So they're kind of an undiscovered gem that you might have in your toolkit that you might not be using. The other thing is, you know, true balance comes from your masculine and your feminine. We all have masculine and feminine. And as women, our energy is about 70% feminine and 30% masculine. And for men, typically it's the other way around. So you do need to use some of your masculine energy to amplify and support your feminine energy. If what you're trying to do is just be very feminine in your approach at work, that's not going to be as optimal as leveraging some of your masculine energy. And of course, masculine energy is very different to feminine energy. So the way I kind of think about this is think about it in 3 stages. First is your prep, kind of, let's understand what's really going on here. You know, where is the unfairness coming from? You know, do you feel it's unfair because of people getting promoted or something else? People who are getting heard over you, for example. Where has that unfairness come from? Is it one individual or is it the culture? Has it always been there or has something changed? And if something's changed, what's changed? That's helping unleash and allow this to happen. Also, why are you more aware of it? Have you changed, and how? Because it might be it's always been there, but you're more attuned to it now because something's changed in yourself. And I guess this is a bit of a contentious one, but is it truly unfair, or is it simply the way you see it that makes you feel it's unfair? And how is the unfairness impacting you? You know, am I really angry with myself because of how I'm responding in the situation, or am I angry at others? What are their motivations for the politics? Where is it coming from? Again, what culture are you operating in? Is that the right culture? That, you know, is the culture right for you? Are there allies in the group? And also then, what ammo do I have? Again, your strengths, but also things like your values. So that's kind of the prep. Let me really unpick what's going on. Then you get your plan. Well, what am I going to do about it? Now I understand the landscape I'm operating in. What am I going to do about it? So if you're operating in a business where the culture is very political, you need to think about whether that's the place you want to be. If it's a culture where people are showing off to get ahead, how are you doing this? How are you amplifying your achievements in a way that still feels aligned with who you are, without falling into that masculine energy and that masculine culture? Are you hiding in the shadows? Are you letting others take credit in order to get a seat at the table? Why are you allowing that to happen? You know, if you have an ally, let's assume you've spoken to him. Have they been able to give you any feedback around how you behave in certain situations, and you know, not getting yourself hurt and not being able to achieve what you want to achieve? And then, of course, you need to do things like know your facts. You've got to know your facts and be prepared to disagree where you need to, again, using your strengths, and explain why. So you need to plan how you will play to each of their motivations to get what you need. And then there's the kind of execution. So breathing, positive affirmations before you go into a situation where you feel it's going to be quite anxious or potentially uncomfortable for you. If you get cut off in a meeting, then you can simply say, excuse me, I'm not done. And have that courage within you to say, I'm not done, I'm still talking. If somebody steals your idea, then actually you can simply rebut with, you know, I'm so pleased you like my idea, enough to build on it, but here's what I think we should do. So acknowledge that they've stolen your idea. Don't let them take ownership of it. And if somebody really has behaved inappropriately, then I do think you need to have a private conversation and help them understand why, and ask them why, and help them understand their impact. And the reality is, if they haven't seen it and they don't want to see it, then again, you have to ask yourself a question about the environment you're in and who can help them understand it.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. And then the other question we had was around strengthening your mindset and resilience, as it can take a battering when times are tough.
Yeah. So this is my dream question. It's kind of my dream question. It wasn't my question.
Did you plant it?
I did not plant it, but it is my dream question. Because sustaining and strengthening the mindset is what we should all be doing for ourselves every day. Even when things are going swimmingly well and all is good in the world and we're in a super happy place, we should be doing this anyway. Because what it does is, one, it creates that resilient mindset for when things go wrong, but also it creates a ripple effect. I kind of describe it like the pebble in the water. It creates a ripple effect, not just for ourselves, but for those around us, your friends, your family, but of course your colleagues in your workplace. And so I would absolutely come back to those 5 tips. So the rituals in particular. So how you wake up in the morning, think about your breathing, think about gratitude and meditation, because they really are that anchor to raising things. And being really diligent in carving out the space for yourself in doing that. And then the other piece I would add to that is journaling, because I think journaling is really important because it helps you reflect. So when you've had both good days and bad days, just journaling about how you feel and your energy levels will help you identify patterns, will help you identify your triggers, and will also help you build that strength and the kind of, you know, mindset that you need when things get tough.
And then there was another one that I'd had someone mention to me. Does anyone else who's on the call, does anyone else have a question that they would like to get asked? Or they would like to ask, rather. Okay, so one more question that someone had mentioned to me was around how to handle pay negotiations.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and one that we all kind of face into in our lifetimes. I have to say, for a long time, I wasn't very good at this because nobody gave me the kind of any tips on how to do this. So it's a difficult one. I would say three things. Firstly, know the market and what you are worth based on your skills and experience. You have to come from a place of data and facts. I think you've also got to be really clear on what you're looking for. And I know this was something that you had posted in the group, Liz, around how men approach it versus how women approach it. But I think you've got to be really clear on what you're looking for. And by the way, give yourself permission to earn it. Really important. So when you do your meditation, literally say, it is safe for me to earn this amount of money. It is safe for me to attract a salary of this much. I am worth this much. Give yourself permission. And then the third tip, I would love to say it's mine, but it's not mine. It actually came from a wonderful woman who spoke at a conference I attended many years ago. And her top tip, which I adopted ever since, and it served me very well, is don't tell them what you currently earn. When they ask you, don't tell them. Just basically say, look, what I currently earn is irrelevant because I expect you to pay in line with what the position is worth. And that was actually probably the best tip I ever got because, like I say, it served me very well after that.
Yeah, I think we had that same response from a couple of people in the group when we debated it as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Lovely. Right, I am pressing allow mic on you, Alex. Oh, have I done it? Oh no, hang on. Oh no. Catherine, you might need to help me out here. Catherine, are you all right to help me?
Here.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you can. I don't have those controls to get her to speak, I don't think. So you just have to read it out.
Oh, is it?
But I can see.
Can you? Okay. I can't see it. Hang on. Have you put your question? You're right, sorry.
It's in the Q&A. Send it to
Is
Q&A.
it? Oh, perfect. Yeah. Sorry, I'm a webinar virgin. All right, can you there, perfect. All right, can you read that, Cecilia? So sometimes I feel like mostly women work on all of what you talk about and are diligent in doing so, don't know how men actually work on those, making it harder for us to find alignment.
Yeah, look, I think that's a really important point. Generally, and if I just reflect on when I've gone to study a lot of these modalities, you do have more women than men in the room. Now, whether that's because men don't see the importance of it or they don't recognize it's important, or whether it's just because the rules by which we currently play have been very male focused and have been focused on what makes the workplace and the world work for men, and therefore men have never seen the need for it. My thoughts on this is, if you look at the world around us, and I'm going to get a bit sort of philosophical for a moment, if you look at the world around us right now with all the challenges we're facing into, and we don't need to go into all of them, but we know that there are many, many out there. Now is the time when we actually need more women than ever to step into that feminine power. The answers and the solutions that we had with us yesterday are not going to be the answers and solutions that we have tomorrow. And so we can't make men change. We can't make men be anything other than what they are. But we can make sure that we as women are as strong as we possibly can be and as powerful as we can be to step into that divine feminine. And so, again, it comes back to our own behavior. Do I want to take responsibility? Do I want to work in as aligned way as I can to create that ripple effect, that positive ripple in the world? Or am I in a place where I believe that it's not worth me doing it unless men do the same thing? And that's a decision that you need to make for yourself. I mean, nobody can make that decision for you. But if you recognize that it is what it is, and men are who they are, and women are who they are, and this is about leveraging the power and the gifts that we have in us to create that ripple effect, that's all we can do.
Oh, just having a look. Sarah's popped something in. Agree, although I also have it with a female boss who keeps going into victim mentality. I don't mean to sound dismissive, but she reverts to focusing on herself when I want to move the conversation forward professionally. Interesting.
Yeah. Sarah, that's a really interesting situation that you're facing into. I think sadly, we are still in a place, we're almost in this kind of shifting sands, because when I look at, and I hate bringing this back to age, but I do think there's a generational piece to this. For a lot of women who came before us, in order for them to succeed in the workplace, they had to adopt that masculine energy, and they had to be very, very masculine in the workplace. And sadly, what that drove is two things. One, that kind of aggressive way of going about how they lead and led teams. But it also created, for some of them, a space where they felt that they had themselves had to fight so hard to get to the positions that they were in, that the last thing they wanted to do was to throw the ladder down and help any other woman get up, because of course that would be a threat to them. So the only thing I can suggest, Sarah, is try and understand where's your boss's, and I'm going to say fear because it's probably rooted in fear. This is probably coming from a place of fear. Where is that fear coming from? Is it fear for her position? Is it fear for her leadership? Does she think that you are potentially her successor, but she doesn't see that as a positive? Try and understand the motivation behind where that's coming from. And if it's a victim mentality, is that expressing as things like blaming others or not taking responsibility? How is that manifesting? Because I think the more you can try and understand that, then that might help you think about how you respond to her, and how you not dismiss where she's coming from, but help her understand it's okay. And with you, there doesn't need to be that combative or that victim mentality space. This is about collaboration rather than competition. So without knowing the specifics, it's harder to give you, more detail than that. But I would say it's probably rooted in fear, because most of how things like this express come from a place of fear.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then I think, so we've got time for one last question. So Mel has said, when D&I teams and organisations say, bring yourself to work, should we trust them?
So I think the work that DI teams do is important work, because I think the ambition is solid. What they are trying to do is create a workplace where people feel really comfortable and feel really happy and thrive, and there's space for everyone. So I think the core motivations of what DI is all about is really positive, and I applaud the fact that that even exists in today's world, because in the past it never did. But I think, and this is very much a personal view, my view has always been, I am responsible for my own development and understanding of who I am. And the tools and techniques that I'm going to use to help me understand that are my responsibility. So I think absolutely leverage what DEI teams can give you in your organization, because they will have a breadth of tools, techniques, learnings, modalities, forums that you can tap into, which are of course going to help you. But if you feel that something is still missing, that you still don't quite feel like, you don't really know what your true self is, and you still want to explore that, then go and explore that in whatever means or ways is meaningful to you to help you get to that answer. And then decide whether bringing that to work is going to be accepted or not, rather than starting from a place of assuming it's not. But of course, if you truly understand yourself already, and you know that actually being that person in the workplace is not going to be accepted, then that's a different question.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. Good point to end on, because I mean, I mean, maybe it could have changed now, but I mean, I've worked somewhere previously where it was always sort of the, tongue in cheek of, if there's a whole thing focusing on, empowering women, but it's like, I don't think it really was. It was a tick box.
Well, and also if you're doing that and you have no men in the room, then, men still hold the majority of power in the world. So if you don't have men in the world in that forum, and particularly if you don't have a male sponsor,
yeah,
you're never going to drive the change.
Yeah, no, correct. Well, thank you so much, Celia. That was wonderful. I'm sure it's given a lot of thinking for everyone, and things that you can quite easily adopt into your everyday. So thank you so much. And yeah, as a reminder, Celia will follow up with some info. And yeah, thank you all for attending, ladies.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy. Thank you.